Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard Byrne, and welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining me for Best of the Web Spring 2019. For those of you who have never joined a webinar with me before, and I do see some familiar names in there as well, so awesome. Thanks to those of you who are joining me for a second or third, or in a couple of cases, a fourth or fifth time even. And for those of you that are new, a few things you should know about the webinar. Number one, everything you see on my screen is being recorded. Number two, there is a Q&A panel that you can use. Feel free to take advantage of that. You'll find that in the GoToWebinar panel on your desktop, and you can ask me any question at any time in there. And number three, the recording of this will be posted on YouTube and posted on my blog. So if you want to share it with a friend after the fact, feel free to do so. I'll also be making a copy of these slides available. These are slightly different than the ones I posted online last week. All right. And I'm going to turn off my webcam. I always like to show my webcam at the beginning so that you can put a face to the voice. But for the rest of the webinar, I'm going to turn off the webcam, and you can just follow along on my screen. I'm going to do some demos in here, and we'll take a look at some interesting tools. Okay. Before we jump into that, let me just tell you, if you do have a question for me, feel free to send me an email at any time, richard@byrne.media, or shoot me a message on Twitter. I'm happy to answer questions there as well. Of course, if you're here in the live session, you can put in your question there, and I'll be happy to help you out. Okay. All right, so all the tools that I'm sharing here are all things that I feel like you could take into your classroom, and in 10 or 15 minutes, your students would understand why you're doing it, or you should be able to explain to your students in 10 or 15 minutes why you're using a particular tool. If it takes longer than that, it better be a really, really good tool and a really in-depth tool to make it worth your time in the classroom. So let's take a look at these tools. I have them arranged in categories, and the first category is tools for creating and remixing, so making things. And this is one that I've been featuring in a number of blog posts over the last year. It came out in just about this time last year, April of last year. It's Google's VR Tour Creator, and over the last year, it has steadily added more and more features. Early on, it was basically just making virtual reality tours based on Street View. Then throughout the year, some new features were added that let you put pictures inside the Street View. They'll let you add audio inside the Street View. And so I'm going to give you a quick demo here of the VR Tour Creator from Google. Now, if you're a G Suite for Education school, you may need to ask your domain administrator to turn this on for you. If you're not a G Suite for Education school, you can still use it using any kind of Gmail account that you want to use. In fact, you'll see here, I'm using just a personal Gmail account and not a G Suite for Education account. And let's say we want to make a little tour, and I'm going to do a little tour of my neighborhood. In fact, I'm going to rename this Tour of Paris Hill, which is my neighborhood, but it's a little historic district in Maine. Yeah, we'll call it a history tour. Now, you'll notice here that one of the new features added just at the beginning of this year of 2019 was the option to see this in Google Expeditions. So if you're a Google Expeditions user, you can actually make your own tours and then view them in Google Expeditions. I'm going to add a cover image to this, and let's make our little cover. And so I'm going to use, let's say this little picture up here. I just had it in my sites. There we go. Okay. Now you might be wondering, why did I add a picture of Hannibal Hamlin? Well, I'll explain that in just a second. So this is how you build a tour in the VR Tour Creator. You'll see it's largely based on Street View, and I can spin around and take a look at this. And you'll see that house in the background there. And unfortunately, this is as close as Street View will let you get. So let's add that scene. I'm going to set my starting view to be right there. And we're going to call this one Courthouse Square. And we'll say that in the background, you can see Hannibal Hamlin's house. Now, I mentioned that this is as close as you can get. Well, that's as close as you can get in Street View. But if you happen to have a picture of a place, you got out and you walked up to it and you took a picture, or you found a picture online, you can add a point of interest. And I'm going to do that right here. And now I can layer in an additional picture on top of this. So let me find a picture here that I have of the house, and there it is. And that's what the house looks like in more detail. And I can click and drag and make it a little smaller. So now I have this point of interest. And that's one of the features that Google added since the launch of this tool at this time last year. You'll also see down here that I can add audio if I want to, add some narration. Oh, and by the way, Hamlin was Lincoln's first vice president. And I can also add audio by clicking either one of those options and uploading my audio file. Now, if I want to make a complete tour, I can continue to add more scenes with more points of interest in there. Okay. So that's something you can do with the VR Tour Creator from Google. Another tool that I really like, two tools in the podcasting realm that I have been big fans of over the last year. Number one is Anchor.fm. I like Anchor.fm because it does all the hard work of publishing your podcast to iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play for you. It does all that work for you. You don't have to do any of the technical setup of that part. That's one of the great things about Anchor.fm. And if you're looking for something even simpler than that, GoSynth.com, which launched late last fall, late 2018. GoSynth is kind of like Flipgrid, but for voice only. So if you're a Flipgrid user, you're familiar with the concept of students posting videos to reply to a prompt. GoSynth does that, but with audio, with podcasts. And I'll show you just how it works. And again, if you have any questions while I'm going through this, feel free to chime in on that GoToWebinar Q&A, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So you can see here, I'm signed into my account, and I have a little prompt that I've recorded previously, and I can see that some people have replied to it. I'm going to record a new one. GoSynth limits you to 256 seconds of recording at a time. It's basically about 4 minutes, a little more than 4 minutes of spoken recording at a time. You can pause it while you're recording. If you need to catch your breath, you need to backtrack and try again, you can do that. I'm just going to hit the record button here and say start. And now I'm recording. This is my GoSynth podcast. And in this podcast, I'd love to hear your thoughts about educational technology. What are some of your favorite tools? One of my favorite tools of the 2018-19 school year is GoSynth. I think it's a great way for students to reply to each other's thoughts. So I've now recorded this. You can see here, if I needed some more time, I can just hit the record button again and keep talking until my time is done. When I hit that done button, it then uploads the recording, and up here I can turn on transcription and have my spoken words automatically transcribed. And while that's happening in the background, I'm going to answer this question. Yes, Francis, there will be a recording available of this. So I hit that next button and we'll say thoughts about best tools of the school year. And now I'm ready to publish this. Okay. Now, anyone who has this, so I could tweet this out. In fact, I'll tweet it right now. Although when I do this during a webinar, it tends to go kind of slowly. Okay. I could tweet that out. Anyone who's following me on Twitter can now hit this create a thread button and reply to me. I can also just say, get this web link. And I could put that web link, in fact, in our GoToWebinar chat right now. You could listen to that. And you could hit the reply button and listen to each other's replies to my original comment. So that's GoSynth.com. Quick, easy way to do some short podcasting. You can do that, as you saw there, obviously with your web browser, but it's also available as an iPad app. There's currently not an Android app, but they have promised to be developing one. All right, so this picture here, some of you may have seen me use this one on my blog earlier this year. This is a picture of me and my daughter hiking in the Himalaya. Well, we didn't actually go there, as you might guess. But what I did is I virtually placed us there by using a tool called Remove BG. Remove BG standing for background. Here's how this tool works. If you missed it earlier this year when I wrote a lengthy blog post and video about it, here's a short version of it. So Remove BG lets me upload any picture I have that has people in it. It's important to note that it only works for pictures that have people in them. So there's a picture of me and one of my daughters waiting for planes, or waiting for the plane at the airport. And it will show us the original and then the one without background. So now I can download that one that has the background stripped out of it. I'm going to drag that to my desktop. And then if you want to put yourself in front of a new object, you might use a blank Google slide or a blank PowerPoint slide or Keynote slide. Doesn't really matter which of the three you choose. You can do this on all three of them. I'll make a new blank slide. And we don't want any layout. We just want to have a complete clean slate. And I'll set my background image. Maybe we want to be in front of the Eiffel Tower. So we'll use that picture. By the way, that picture came from Pixabay, which is a source of public domain pictures. And then I just drag us in. And now we're there, right in front of the Eiffel Tower. And so that's how you can put yourself virtually in front of anything. And of course, if I wanted to save this, I could download that as a new image altogether. So basically you're doing a green screen, but for your pictures. If you want to try this with pictures that don't have people in them, with pictures that might have your pets in them, or your favorite car, your motorcycle, or something like that, and you want to cut out the background, Photo Scissors, which you can find at online.photoscissors.com, will let you do a very similar thing where I can upload a picture, and let me find a picture here in this folder. Maybe I want a picture of one of my dogs or something like that. Okay, so there's a picture with my dogs. And you'll see the little reminders there. And make sure you stay within the lines. So now we can go in and just kind of remove the background. And we can get our new picture when we're done with that. Okay, so that's my little picture that I can then color out the background from, and that's called so that's Remove BG and Photo Scissors Online. Now another little drawing tool that I've become a huge fan of in the last year, and again, this is one that I've featured in a number of blog posts over the last school year, is Brush Ninja. And this is a tool that I actually used with a group of 8th grade students who were making animations on the forms of energy. I was working with the school this year as their tech consultant or tech advisor, and the teacher came to me and said, Richard, I'd love to have them do something different for their forms of energy presentations. I don't want them to just do Google Slides again. I don't want them to do PowerPoint again. She was sick of that. And I said, well, what about having them make some animations to illustrate the forms of energy? And she was all for it. And the kids were really into it. And they used this Brush Ninja to make their animations. And it's a really simple tool. No passwords or sign up is required at all. They can just go in here and start drawing. And here's an example of what some of the kids did. Now, my drawing skills are nowhere near as good as the kids are. And I'm also kind of going to rush this one a little bit as I go through it. But we'll say we're doing a form of energy here. And this is going to be my fire that I'm building down below here. There's my fire that I'm building. And then down below, I'm going to hit the copy button. I'm going to add in the next part of the animation. And then I'll duplicate that again. And I'm going to put in my water. Okay, so this is going to represent my boiling water when I get it all filled in. There we go. And there are options for students to insert pictures in the background instead of just doing everything as a freehand drawing. I'm going to duplicate that one. I'm going to now use this lighter color to illustrate steam coming up. And in our next frame, I'm going to draw in my little fan with fan blades. Again, please don't make fun of my drawing right now. Kind of looks like a throwing star, but anyway. And now we'll just draw in some arrows to illustrate the way it turns. I should point out the students that I was working with had touch screen Chromebooks, which made this quite a bit easier. And now we can play this back. And there's our animation. Now, again, this is a very simple illustration of what the students did, but they all made 7 animations using Brush Ninja to illustrate 7 different forms of energy and energy transfer. When you're happy with it, you can save it. And once you hit the save button, you can go over here and you can adjust anything you like about it. 5 frames per second if you want, slow it down. And then hit the export button to save your animated GIF. So that's Brush Ninja, kind of a quick, easy way to do some illustration, some animations. Another tool that I've been super excited about for, oh gosh, going on almost 2 years now is GoMeta. You'll find it at GoMeta.io. This is a great tool for making your own augmented reality experiences, your own augmented reality games. Think of it as a way to make your own educational version of Pokemon Go. So GoMeta.io, it's drag and drop programming. It's not the simplest programming you'll ever do, but then again, you can make some really incredible things. And GoMeta.io, which I'll bring up here, recently added a special feature for teachers in which you can create collections of experiences that your students have built. So think of it as building a little online classroom where you get assignments or you give students assignments to make something and they turn it into you as part of a collection. But I'll show you one that I recently did here, and we'll go into the edit of this, and you'll see how the experience kind of gets programmed together. So I start with designing my first frame of the experience. Now you're seeing right here exactly what will appear on your phone. So you design it screen by screen. If you want something to appear on your phone, you'd build it here in each one of these scenes, and then you use the logic to connect from scene to scene. So for example, here I wrote tap to take a picture, and that transitioned into a scene where you're using your camera. It turns on the camera on your phone, and you'll see then that gets saved to a piece of logic that's called save to wall, and we created a gallery of pictures from everybody who used this app. Now, this particular app, this particular experience, we made it private, so only people who got the QR code were able to participate in it. You could also make these experiences public and let anybody in the world try out your augmented reality experience. And it's called GoMeta.io. And Hacking STEM is a Microsoft initiative that launched last year, and this year has even more fun, hands-on STEM activities you can do for zero or low cost to you for materials. One of the new Hacking STEM projects is this one here about brain injury. And you can see here, this is just a paper model of a brain. And it was used in this demonstration that I saw back in January at the Bet Show in London, in which you're measuring the impact of a tennis ball on the brain. So here's how it played out. You can see that tennis ball whacked the model. Now the model is obviously just made out of paper. And there are some inexpensive sensors hooked up to that model so that you can then have that data, that impact data, automatically appear in Excel spreadsheets. And Hacking STEM provides all the plans on how to put that together. And the only part you need to purchase is the sensors, and they're very affordable to get. All right, so let's move into some workflow and classroom management favorites of mine and many of you, my faithful readers of this blog. Friend Nathan Hall is a teacher up in Alberta, and he put together a great list of web tools that you can use or have your students use without needing to register on the site. You can find it at bit.ly/noreg19, and he's got about 80 or so resources on there, things for making animations, making videos, making podcasts, audio recordings, programming, all kinds of great little tools that your students can use without having to register in order to use them. I know many of you, like me, were disappointed when Today's Meet shut down last year, back in late May of 2018. Today's Meet shut down, and it was a fantastic back channel tool that many of us had used for almost a decade. Well, a great alternative that popped up in the late summer is a tool called YoTeach. It comes from Hong Kong Polytechnic. You can find it at YoTeachApp.com. And I'll bring it up on the screen, and we'll make our own little back channel right now. So you see it here at YoTeachApp.com. And we'll make a new room, call it Mr. Burns Room. For Mr. Burns' class. And we can say we want to hide it from search results if we want to. I can enable admin features and enable a password if I want, but I want you all to be able to try it out. So let's just create it. Oh, there we go. Okay. So that's my room. Let me go back or forward. So again, I just went to Mr. Burns' room. There it is. And I can give people that link. I can give you that QR code for it. Okay. So I give you that link. Just copy that link address. And I can start writing and say, welcome. Post my message. Now, YoTeach has a couple of other handy little features besides just text. I can go in and I can draw. Yeah. You say 2 + 2 = 4. You'll see it's trying to interpret my drawing to be something else. If my 2 + 2 = 4 is one of these things, but that's not the case. I'm just going to leave it as is. I can add a picture. You can see here we also have a latex editor as well. That's the YoTeach. You can find it at YoTeachApp.com. For my language arts teachers, my social studies teachers, anyone who spends a lot of time giving students feedback on written work, particularly fiction work or any kind of longer essay, Kaizena.com can be a great resource for you. It will work with your Google Documents. It will also work with your Word documents, and it lets you add voice comments to your students' documents. So I'll bring it up right now. I can check it out at Kaizena.com. And you'll see here that it's going to try to prompt you to install it now. If you hit the install now, that'll take you to the Google Docs add-on. In my case, it's already installed. But if you want to use it with a Word doc or a PDF, go down here to the bottom and choose the web app login. And if you use the web app login, then you can use this with PDFs and Word documents. So let's just use my sample group here. So I want to add a file. I can upload a PDF or a Word doc. So let's say I have this PDF right here. When it's converted, I'll be able to go in and record comments about this. Right? And it's still having still taking a moment to convert. There we go. So I just highlighted that portion. And now I can record my voice comment about this thing. And we'll say part 2, perhaps you should add a little bit more detail to your outline for part 2. Maybe that's my recording. So now I have a voice comment attached to this document. If I share this with the group, in this case, these are all my sample students. If I share this with the group, everyone who's in the group will be able to hear those comments. Now I can also share it with just one of the people in the group as well. Think of groups as a class list or a student list. You can check that out at Kaizena.com. And Jozu Express, which I won't demo here, but I will point out, if you're a Google Docs user and you are tired of spending lots of time giving students feedback in the form of Google Docs comments and then them not using that feedback, you might want to use Jozu Express to see how much time your students are spending interacting with your comments before they hit that resolve button on the comment, and see how much they're actually changing the document as a result of your comments. So Jozu Express is great for tracking that kind of information. Now this is one of those tools that I've been using for a long time. It makes for a great live demo, makes for a terrible web demo. It's called bouncyballs.org, and bouncyballs.org is just a very simple website where you can let students see visually how loud they are being. So allow your microphone, and you'll see the louder I get, the more the balls bounce on the screen. I can make it more sensitive, and then it says I'm too loud, or I can turn it down and it'll hardly move at all. It's a fun little tool, and if you want to really mix it up, you can do things like bouncing emojis, bouncing bubbles, or even bouncing eyeballs. And again, it moves around based on how loud I am. Okay. So if you're looking for something to give your students a little representation of how loud they're being, Bouncy Balls is great for that. If you have a Facebook addiction or a Twitter addiction or any kind of social media addiction that keeps you from getting work done sometimes, maybe you're trying to get through that stack of essays that you need to grade and you say, I'm just going to check Facebook for a minute, and then 12 minutes later you find yourself shopping on Amazon because you saw something interesting on Facebook. This is a great little resource for you, could be a great little resource for your students. It's called Recall Study Time. You'll see I have it here as a Chrome extension. It is a Chrome extension, and here's how it works. I'm going to turn this on, and I'll say I'm going to have it run for the next 2 hours. It's going to block me from Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. And if I try to go to Facebook now, it'll tell me, no, go back to work. Now, obviously, I can turn this off at any time, but if you're honest with yourself, your kids are honest with themselves, it can be a nice little reminder to, hey, let's focus and bang out this work, and then we can go play on Facebook or go watch YouTube or whatever social media thing we're often distracted by. Right. Now, speaking of distractions, sometimes we need a little break during the day to get up and get out of the desk. Swarkit Kids is one of my favorite apps for this. I've been recommending this app for years. Swarkit Kids gives you fun little exercises your kids can do right by their desks in your classroom, just to give them a little break, get the wiggles out, if you will. And if you need a little refocusing your class, you're looking for some ideas on how to get your kids settled again, maybe Stop, Breathe, and Think is a good app for you to try. They provide short little breathing exercises. I don't want to call them meditation exercises because they're not that. Just simple little breathing exercises that you can use in your classroom to, maybe get kids to focus or settle down just a little bit. And one other app along that same line, and this is another new app this year, YoHue, H-U-E, is a free app. It's available as an iPad app. You can also use it in your Chromebook. And it's kind of like Class Dojo, except rather than being about behavior, it's just a little check-in for your students to say how they're feeling at that moment in time in class. It can be, how do they feel about the upcoming quiz, or how do they feel about an interaction that's happened in class. That's YoHue. Check that out. It's a new service. They're adding more features all the time. And this one's been popping around in the background of my screen all afternoon here. You've probably all seen it, wondering why does it keep bringing it up. Flippity.net now has 20 Google Sheets templates that you can use to make all kinds of fun things, whether that's flashcards, scavenger hunts, timelines, bingo games. Word Scramble is the newest thing that they've made. So with the Word Scramble, you simply write up a list of words in your spreadsheet, and Flippity will turn it into a printable word scramble for you. Great little add-on for Google Spreadsheets. So I've been using it for quite a while, and they keep adding more and more things. Speaking of new things, let's check out a few other resources. So I mentioned Google Expeditions earlier on when I was talking about VR Tour Creator. The trouble with Google Expeditions is that, and trouble with a lot of VR experiences, is that you need a VR viewer, some kind of cardboard headset. You need something kind of like, well, I'm going to turn on my webcam and I'll show you. You need something kind of like this, one of these VR viewers. Now, these aren't expensive. They're $6 or $7, this one here. And here, yeah, this one here from Beer, all excellent. But even at $7, that can add up to your classroom pretty darn quickly. Not to mention you got to keep track of all of them and all the other pieces that go with it. Sites in VR, if you're just starting to dabble in using virtual reality in your classroom, Sites in VR is an excellent way to get started because it lets your students experience some virtual reality without the need for one of those headsets. Spring is arriving here in Maine. Hopefully it's arriving where you are too. We still have tons of snow in my yard, but we're starting to see some patches of dirt again, patches of mud, and it's a great time to get outside. PBS Kids offers a great app that can help you get your kids outside. It's called the PBS Kids Nature Cats Daily Nature Adventures. You can get this for your Android device. You can get this for your iOS device. There's about 100 activities within it. Activities you'll see here. Record the sound you make splashing in puddles. Most of the activities are designed for being done outdoors, but there's also some that you can do indoors that are related to nature as well. And kids can earn little digital badges for completing them. And it's a fun app. There's a little journal in there where kids can record their observations. And as you can see here, you can also record your sound if you need to. Some more augmented reality options. I talked about Metaverse earlier, which is great for making your own. But if you want to experience some augmented reality without having to make your own experience, check out GeoGebra's 3D graphing calculator. And I'm especially excited about VR Math, which you can find on either app store, the iOS or Android. And VR Math gives your students immersive geometry experiences in which they're actually looking at objects from within and without, and from the inside and from the outside. And they have little activities to complete as they're looking at these objects and manipulating and moving around the objects in virtual reality. It also has a little component for teachers to guide their students through the experience. So students can work on their own, or they can be led by you through the experiences. I'm starting to get a little long on this webinar, so I'm going to speed through a couple of these last few things. So this is this picture represents a story that ESPN ran last year from a fake website, or I shouldn't say fake website, a satire website here in Maine. And the story was that a high school basketball game was canceled because the ball was stuck behind the wood stove and there was no other ball available in the school. Now, it was not a real story, yet an ESPN program picked it up, the Mike and Mike show, or I'm sorry, the Golick and Wingo show now is what it's called, picked up the story and believed it hook, line, and sinker and talked about it for a good 4 or 5 minutes. I bring that up because they and their producers could have benefited from going through a little activity called Factitious. Factitious is a game developed by American International University in which you're shown stories and you swipe left or swipe right or click left or click right, depending on whether you think the story is real or fake, and it gives you a little bit of a hint by showing you the source, and then it explains after you've made your decision why that story is real or fake. And speaking of real or fake, if you want to have some fun with a website, take a look at Goggles from Mozilla. What the goggles do is let you see the code on any page and then change the code to show it in a new way. So you could replace the picture or replace the text on a page, and then you can save a local copy. It doesn't change the actual website that you're looking at, but it changes the local copy, and you can show that local copy to your students and say, do you think this is real or do you think this is fake? Now, I'm going to show my bookmarks bar here. So let's use this on a story. Let's say I go to the BBC News and I want to maybe change this story. I can go up here and I'll use my bookmarks. I'm going to show those real quick. And I'll turn on my X-ray goggles. Now, these come from Mozilla, and so obviously it will work on Firefox, but it also works in Chrome. And you can see the page here. There it is. It's now highlighted the page. I'm going to highlight just that section. Okay. So, all right. So, yeah. So I've now changed the story, and I'll hit the publish button. And when I'm signed into my account, it'll give me a local copy that I can then share with my students and say, do you think that's really the headline? Or, I can go in and change any aspect of what's displayed on that page when I show it to my students on my local copy. So check that out at goggles.mozilla.org. A good alternative to YouTube that I just discovered this past January is BoClips. BoClips has millions of educational videos. Many of them come from the same people that you probably follow on YouTube, like Crash Course or Khan Academy. But it doesn't display all the related videos or suggested videos or any of the advertising that you would find on YouTube. So check that out at boclips.com. Okay. Sorry, I didn't turn off my X-ray goggles. My X-ray goggles are still running in the background. Hold on. Let me present that one more time. All right, and we're going to wrap up here with a little bit of checking for understanding. Google has a new phishing quiz. It's called Phishing Quiz with Google.com, and it shows you some examples of phishing emails, and you have to try to spot what's real or what's fake within each one of those, and it will also explain to you why the email was a phishing attempt or not a phishing attempt. GoFormative.com, one of my favorite tools for creating formative assessments. I always like to highlight the feature for adding questions directly on top of pictures, diagrams, and documents. I get asked about how to do things like that quite often, and my recommendation is always GoFormative.com. I include this one as a shout out to a teacher in my neighborhood, a teacher down in Portland, Maine, about an hour away from me. He and his students have built a Kahoot-like game system called Game On World. You can check it out at gameon.world. The Google Science Journal app is one that I've been promoting more and more wherever I go, particularly when I talk about activities you can do outside. The Google Science Journal app includes 10 different sensors that you can use for things like light observation, speed, distance, sound, and a handful of others. You can create experiments, and you can see here, record videos, record pictures, and create your science journal. Flipgrid. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with Flipgrid. If you're not familiar with Flipgrid, it's a video response system. You can post a video and have students respond with their own videos. But the trouble with it is that after a while, your kids might get bored of talking to each other. So check out the Flipgrid Pals. Go to Grid Pals within Flipgrid, and you can find a classroom to share your videos with. So you can be video pen pals through Flipgrid Pals. Check it out at flipgrid.com, and in your account, turn on the Grid Pals to find a classroom near you. And to wrap this up, CertifyMe is a Google Forms add-on that I've been using since about this time last year as a way to send a certificate to students as soon as they pass a quiz in Google Forms. I often use it for PD sessions so that people who complete the exit survey get their certificate emailed to them as soon as they finish the exit survey made in Google Forms. And I want to end with this. If you enjoyed today's webinar, consider joining me for a practical EdTech webinar in April. I'm hosting 5 of them every Tuesday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. You can find those at bit.ly/April19web. And the first one is next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's all about how to blend technology into outdoor lessons. As I mentioned earlier, it's an update to one that I've done before. I did it last year at this time, and it was massively popular, one of the most popular ones that I did. And I've updated it with some new things and some much deeper dives into some of the tools that I hit on today, including Metaverse and the VR Tour Creator. So you can join me for that next week. And if you want a copy of these slides, you can get it at bit.ly/bestofweb19. You can get a copy of these slides right there at bit.ly/bestofweb19. And if you want to get a replay of this webinar, I'll be posting it on my YouTube channel. It'll also be up on freetechforteachers.com. Tomorrow, you can go and watch it, share it with your friends, whatever you like. And as always, if you have any questions for me, feel free to send me an email. richard@byrne.media is my email address. And thank you to those of you who spent your last 53 minutes of your day, the last 53 minutes of your day with me. I hope you learned some new things. As always, like I said, send me an email, richard@byrne.media, or find me on Twitter at twitter.com/rmbyrne. Hey, thanks, Gene. My pleasure. Have a great afternoon, everyone, or great evening, depending on where you are in the world. And see you online sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.